Today marks 1 year since Queen Elizabeth II died at the age of 96, and that also means it's been a year since her son, the now King Charles, ascended to the throne. King Charles and Queen Camilla did not attend public tributes today, choosing instead to spend the day quietly and privately at Scotland's Balmoral Castle. It's a tradition Queen Elizabeth also did on her own Ascension Day to mourn the loss of her father, the late King George. So today's commemoration instead was led by Prince William and Princess Kate. Here now is our favorite expert on everything royal, history professor from Syracuse University, Allport. Thank you, Professor, as always, for being with us. How would you say the family, the royal family as a whole, has adjusted over the last year without Queen Elizabeth?
I think the thing that would strike people the most is how relatively seamless the transition has been between the late Queen and King Charles. She was the monarch for an unprecedentedly long reign, and the Britain which Charles inherited was a profoundly different country from the one that she had become queen over in 1952. And I think there had always been this long sense. I mean, we've been thinking about what a King Charles would be like for a very long time now. I mean, it's been really about 40 years where the question has always been there. And certainly when Charles was younger, there was always this sense that he might be a very radical kind of monarch, that he seemed as though he would get very frustrated with some of the old-fashioned traditions of the monarchy, and he might want to take it in a radically different direction. Now, that clearly hasn't happened. At least it certainly hasn't happened yet. And he's taking a much more traditional, conventional style, very low key, which I think would surprise people based upon the kind of man that Charles has been throughout much of his life. It's interesting to wonder why. I mean, it may simply be a reflection of the fact that he obviously is an older man now, that he inherited the throne at a relatively late stage in life. Maybe he also realizes that after the COVID pandemic, after a Brexit, after a huge amount of political and social instability over the last few years, that people don't really want anything very radical from their royals. They want a little bit of continuity right now. They want a little bit of things staying the same. And he may be picking up on that.
Right. And not only is he staying with tradition, I mean, spending today in Balmoral with Camilla, but also he's put aside campaigning some of the things that he has become known for, so climate change and the environment. Do you expect that to continue? Because they may not be as controversial, but that he'll at least try to add that back into the conversation of his royal duty?
I imagine Charles is trying to figure out very hard how he can sort of tweak things in the direction he'd like without appearing to court controversy. I mean, I think one of the things that we forget about Charles now is that he was an extremely controversial figure for many years. He and now Queen Camilla, of course, were the kind of Harry and Meghan of their day, say 20, 30 years ago. And all of course, the very dramatic and tragic circumstances surrounding his divorce from Princess Diana and then her death in 1997 meant that there was something that was a little bit tarnished about the couple. And back when they married in 2005, there was a big fuss made about the fact that Camilla would never be the queen, that she would always be considered to be merely the queen consort. Well, all of that has been quietly dropped now, and we now just speak of Queen Camilla.
Right. Well, and you have to wonder, Alan, pardon the interruption, but you have to wonder the lessons learned about how the royal family and his mother, Queen Elizabeth, handled that situation and how he's handling the current rift, it seems, in the family with his son and Meghan.
Yeah, well, I mean, Harry apparently he is in London right now, although Meghan is not, and he's attending some charity events. He's not due to actually meet with his family while he's there. I get the sense that the drama of the Harry and Meghan thing has kind of cooled off a little bit in the last couple of months. And that may be simply because of the fact that the public have moved on a little bit, or it could be there could be conversations going on quietly that we're not particularly aware of. But I suspect that Charles very much wants to lead a quiet life for a few years. I mean, of course, always the big question about King Charles. The very nature of monarchy is that it relies on the frailty and unpredictability of human life. We don't know whether he's going to have a long reign or a short reign. His family seem to live to extremely old age. So, I mean, we could easily have a King Charles for another 20 or 30 years. On the other hand, it could be a relatively short reign in which he'll hand over to his son, who will become King William. So I suppose he will have to think about, what, if anything, he wants to change about the institution, given the very uncertain time that he has to be able to do anything.
Always fun to talk about the royals with you, Alan Allport. Thank you. Have a good weekend.
Thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find News Nation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of News Nation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.